is completely unacceptable.
Look at this.
So sorry, ma'am.
Young lady, calm down.
I want to see the manager now.
Right away.
The restaurant was full of laughter, clinking glasses, and expensive perfume. Wealthy guests talked loudly while waiters rushed from table to table. But in one quiet corner stood a shy waitress that no one seemed to notice. She moved carefully, keeping her eyes low, her voice soft. Some customers ignored her. Others spoke to her as if she were invisible. One woman even snapped her fingers at her like she was calling a servant. No one cared. No one, except an elderly woman sitting silently at the most important table in the restaurant. She watched everything. Every insult. Every small act of kindness. Every moment the shy waitress swallowed her pride and kept working. And when the night reached its most humiliating moment, the elderly woman slowly stood up. What she said next would silence the entire restaurant, shock the billionaire sitting beside her, and change the waitress's life forever. The restaurant, La Mirabelle, was known as one of the most luxurious places in the city. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above marble floors, and the guests who came there were often celebrities, politicians, and billionaires. For most of the staff, working there meant prestige and opportunity. But for Sophia, it was simply survival. Sophia was a quiet young woman in her early 20s. She always kept her dark hair tied neatly behind her head and wore the same gentle smile, even when customers were rude. Most people didn't know much about her. Some assumed she was slow because she spoke so softly. Others thought she lacked confidence. A few simply ignored her completely. But Sophia never argued. She simply worked harder. She arrived earlier than everyone else and often left after the last table had gone. The manager rarely noticed her, and the other waiters often took the best tables, leaving Sophia with the most difficult guests. That night, the restaurant buzzed with excitement. A famous billionaire named Adrien Laurent had reserved the private dining section for a family dinner. Business partners, friends, and important guests filled the long elegant table. Expensive wine flowed, laughter echoed, and everyone seemed eager to impress the powerful man. Sophia had been assigned to serve that table. The other waiters secretly felt relieved. That table demanded perfection, and the guests were known to be extremely demanding. Sophia approached quietly and began serving the drinks. A glamorous woman sitting beside Adrien barely glanced at her. "Careful," the woman said sharply. "This dress costs more than your monthly salary." Some of the guests laughed softly. Sophia nodded politely and continued working. Another guest waved his hand impatiently. "Miss, you're too slow. Did they hire you yesterday?" Again, Sophia apologized softly. She had learned long ago that silence was easier than arguing. At the end of the table sat Adrien's mother, Mrs. Laurent. She was an elegant older woman with calm gray eyes. Unlike the others, she spoke very little. She simply watched. Every time Sophia served her, the young waitress treated her with special care, placing the plate gently, asking quietly if everything was fine. Mrs. Laurent noticed something others did not. Sophia never lost her patience. Even when guests complained about things that weren't her fault. Even when they laughed at her quiet voice. Even when one of the men spilled wine and blamed her for it. Later that evening, the glamorous woman snapped her fingers loudly. "Waitress! I asked for sparkling water 10 minutes ago." "I'm very sorry," Sophia said gently, bringing the bottle. But as she poured, another guest suddenly pushed his chair back. The movement startled Sophia, and a few drops splashed onto the tablecloth. The glamorous woman gasped dramatically. "Oh my God! Look what you've done!" The table erupted in complaints. The manager rushed over immediately. His face turned red with anger. "Sophia," he snapped. "This is unacceptable." Sophia lowered her head, her hands shaking. "I'm sorry, sir." The guests continued whispering and complaining. Some even suggested she should be fired immediately. And through all of this, Mrs. Laurent remained silent. Watching. Chapter 2. The humiliation grew worse. The manager tried to calm the guests while scolding Sophia in front of everyone. "You are embarrassing this restaurant," he said coldly. "Apologize properly." Sophia felt dozens of eyes staring at her. Her face burned with shame, but she bowed slightly. "I truly apologize." Some guests looked satisfied. Others looked bored. To them, it was just another moment of drama in an expensive restaurant. But suddenly, a chair moved. The sound echoed across the quiet room. Mrs. Laurent slowly stood up. The entire table fell silent. Adrien looked surprised. His mother rarely interrupted anyone. She turned toward the manager first. "Young man," she said calmly, "why are you scolding this girl?" The manager blinked nervously. "Madam, she made a mistake while serving your table." Mrs. Laurent looked at the tablecloth, then at the guests. "I see no disaster here," she said. Her voice was gentle, yet powerful enough to silence the room. Then she turned toward Sophia. "What is your name, dear?" "Sophia," the waitress answered softly. Mrs. Laurent smiled kindly. "Sophia, I have been watching you all evening." The other guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "You have been polite to everyone. Even those who were not polite to you." The glamorous woman crossed her arms. "It's her job," she muttered. Mrs. Laurent turned to her slowly. "No," she said calmly. "Kindness is never just a job." The room fell silent again. Then Mrs. Laurent said something that shocked everyone. "This young woman reminds me of myself." Adrien frowned slightly. "Mother, what do you mean?" She looked at him warmly. "Before your father built our company, I was a waitress just like her." The table froze. The glamorous guests suddenly seemed less confident. Mrs. Laurent gently placed a hand on Sophia's shoulder. "And I know something about people who work quietly like this," she continued. "They are often the strongest people in the room." Then she turned toward the manager. "If anyone should apologize tonight, it is not her." The manager's face turned pale. Finally, Mrs. Laurent looked at her son. "Adrien," she said softly, "remember this moment. Success means nothing if you forget how to respect people." The billionaire nodded slowly, clearly moved. Then he stood up as well. "You're right, mother." He turned to Sophia. "I believe we owe you an apology." For the first time that night, the entire table looked at the shy waitress differently. Not as someone invisible, but as someone worthy of respect. And later that evening, when Sophia finished her shift, the manager called her into his office. She feared the worst. But instead, he handed her a small envelope. Inside was a generous tip from Adrien Laurent, and a handwritten note from his mother. It said, "Never let the world make you feel small. Kindness and dignity will take you farther than wealth ever could." Sophia walked home that night with tears in her eyes, but for the first time, they were tears of hope. Because sometimes, the world ignores quiet people. But when the right person finally sees them, everything changes.